Hi class, my name is Alicia Aubrey and I'm going to be doing my presentation on the influences of mental health in education. First to start, I wanted to talk a little bit about why mental health in schools is important. Mental health and trauma experienced by children can have a negative impact cognitively, socially, and emotionally, and this does affect the overall success of the child. So this has been an issue in education for quite a while, as it affects 1 in 4 people, according to Child Mind Institute. Another source said it was 1 in 5 people, some of which are children as young as 8 years old. The impacts of mental health extend beyond the individual, and they affect those around them. So their peers in class, teachers, family members. So it's a critical problem in education because a lot of teachers are not trained in handling the various mental health issues, let alone understanding them. So if the educators are not trained in mental health, as well as equipped to assist children, frustration and stress results. It's brought into the classroom, and a lot of students suffer in the class, as well as the teacher, aside from the student with a mental health issue to begin with. So an awareness of mental health and trauma and its impact on children must be emphasized in order to effectively understand and teach those students suffering. The way in which schools respond to mental health plays a critical role in the development of the child and their level of academic success. So we see here that 1 out of 5 American kids ages 3 to 17 have a mental disorder. This was so crazy to me when I read this. I didn't realize that it was as common as it is, 1 out of 5. Mental health is defined as a person's condition with regard to their psychological and emotional well-being. So let's start with the most common health issues in children and adolescents. A lot of children in our classrooms are suffering from depression, anxiety, ADHD or ADD, which is an attention deficit disorder, autism, post-traumatic stress disorder, substance abuse, and eating disorders. There are other disorders as well, such as bipolar. There are many other issues, but these here are the most common. 50% of parents were reported to not seek help for their children until after the first year of suspecting a mental health issue, whereas nearly 22% waited 2 years. This is quoted from the Child Mind Institute from 2018. So as you can see, there's a lot of denial. There's a lot of parents who don't want to accept that their child could be going through something or have an actual diagnosable mental health issue. So to catch it in the classroom is going to be the first place, majority of the time, where a student is able to receive help. So what should educators know? We should know the warning signs for mental health issues. We should know where to get help, such as the principal, a school nurse, a social worker, or a psychologist. We should know how to bring awareness to parents. We should know where to direct parents for help, and we should know how to create awareness of mental health in our classroom and how to accommodate and help students. There's a really bad stigma around mental health, and discussing it more and more with our children, our students at a young age, will help to eliminate the stigma and create a safe place for them to come to with anything that they're struggling with or going through. So what are the warning signs that we should look for? A lot of students who are experiencing some of these mental disorders will have feelings of sadness or withdrawal for longer than 2 weeks. A lot of students will cry, and it won't just be over one incident on the playground. It's over a long, consistent duration of time. Trying to harm oneself or making plans to do so. Sudden overwhelming fear for no reason. For instance, I had read an article where a student had gotten up from his desk immediately, went over to the window, and started shouting that bad men were going to get him. Obviously, there were no bad men around, and it came out of nowhere, but that is an example of a mental disorder that the student was suffering from. Involvement in many fights or the strong desire to hurt others, not eating, throwing up, extreme weight loss, using laxatives. Sometimes students will wear very baggy clothes to try to hide some of these things. extreme difficulty concentrating or staying still to the point of disruption to the class. So they're getting out of their seat frequently. They can't seem to stay focused. Drastic changes in the student's behavior or personality. Sleeping regularly through class. Substance abuse shown by slurred words, staggering posture, or falling asleep. I would hope that the substance abuse, if it is to be evident in a classroom, that it would be far beyond the lower elementary grades, but it can happen through lower grade levels as well, though it is more rare. But this substance abuse is definitely more prevalent in high school and even middle school. So how can educators help? Educate themselves and students regarding mental health issues and symptoms. They can cultivate a safe environment in the classroom. They can help provide mental health access to students. So helping the student, getting them in contact with the school counselor or psychologist. They can give tips and encouragement to foster good health. You could make a small lesson plan out of it for a day, giving tips, showing videos, making it informative and helpful, just like incorporating it maybe into a PE lesson. Seeking the help of school counselors, regularly talk to students and encourage them to open up. According to Jessica Lander, a lot of students suffer with trauma, and the students will shut down, and we think that they're just being defiant, but a lot of them are going through mental health issues such as trauma, and she describes it as neglect, abuse, or violence as experienced by roughly half of U.S. school children. She says that trauma has a variety of names, such as secondary traumatic stress, vicarious trauma, and compassion fatigue. Regardless of the type or extent, trauma directly affects children by resulting in withdrawal from friends and family, irritability, anger or numbness, inability to focus, blaming others, feeling hopeless or isolated or guilty about not doing enough, struggling to concentrate, being unable to sleep, overeating or not eating, and continually and persistently worrying. All of the behaviors and issues do bleed into the classroom, and they impact not only the student, but the student's peers, friends, teacher, and the learning environment. There's a link here below for the full article. So on the other side of the spectrum, it's argued, well, how can educators focus on academics if they also have to play the role of a counselor? Here is a quick video that you can click on and watch at your leisure with Ken Robinson, which actually was one of the videos that we had watched in our course. But he talked about ADHD and mental health in public education, and I thought it was so interesting, his perspective, where he was discussing that perhaps ADD is being overdiagnosed in our schools. Either way, this is a great video that you can watch and click on. You can pause the slide and or you can pause the slideshow if it's still playing. I'm not too sure how this works, but you can pause the slideshow if it's still playing and then watch the video and then come back. The only state in the U.S. that has incorporated mental health in their school curriculum is New York, and it just did this in 2018, where it is actually part of the curriculum now. I believe that they are implementing it in like a physical education component. So there's a link here also where it discusses how New York has incorporated mental health, and they're hoping that other states will follow suit. California typically follows what New York does in a lot of cases, so this could be something that would be considered in our curriculum as well in the near future. So it is inevitable that educators will face mental health issues head on in the classroom because, as you saw, 1 in 5 students struggle with mental health. So oftentimes teachers experiencing behavioral issues, they have no clue that it's related to trauma. It results in the student not receiving the proper care or the understanding that they need in order to get help or even grow from the experience. Sometimes these students are just disciplined or sent out of the room. So not being able to identify mental health issues in students is really problematic for educators in the classroom. It can lead to negative effects in the teacher's life as well, because the stress and the confusion that the teacher is experiencing causes a lot of turmoil in the classroom also. So in order for schools to succeed, it is critical that they equip teachers with the proper training in trauma and mental health, as well as empathize with and address the reality of the issues. School districts can support teachers by offering workshops on the issues with strategies to deal with specific signs of trauma and mental health in their students, to be able to identify behaviors, what triggers those behaviors, what the behaviors mean, and a remedy to helping the student feel safe and accepted while redirecting them back to their work. So where do you stand on this issue? How do you plan to approach the issue of mental health in your classroom? It is inevitable that you'll probably encounter this with some of your students in the years to come. Are you prepared for a 6-hour day, 5 days a week, with 1 in 5 students who are struggling with some sort of health issue? Do you know where to get support for your students? Do you know where to get support for yourself? Do you know what symptoms to look for and how to accommodate these students? Every day, in 100 small ways, our children ask, do you see me? Do you hear me? Do I matter? Their behavior often reflects our response. Thank you. If you have any questions, you can email me at aaubrey18@apu.edu. Thank you so much.